Yo, yo, yo. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show podcast, where we help you with some of the biggest issues, challenges, problems you have. And when we talk about issues, problems, challenges, one of the biggest challenges for a lot of dentists who own their own practices is not figuring out what the real issue is. And so today, I've got an amazing coach, an amazing thinker, Jenni Poulos, on here to discuss a methodology, a framework for how you can call out the key issues, solve them, and make your practice better every single week. I promise you, if you follow this methodology, your life and your practice are going to get better. So hope you enjoyed the episode. See you soon. Yo, yo, yo. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode, a fabulous episode of the Best Practices Show. I have an amazing guest on here. You guys have seen her before. Jenni Poulos, who's a brilliant coach here. And sometimes she serves as my therapist around here because she's just like, okay, listen, she's really good at calling out issues. Now, before we hit the go button, I'm like, Jenni, what's really, like, what happened today, yesterday? And so she's like, okay, listen, you know, the problem with a lot of great dental practices is they can't call out the real issue and they recycle garbage. I'm like, oh, that's brilliant because I've been there.
And it's so painful.
Boy, how painful is it?
Oh, it's kills you, right? It's so devastating for doctors and team members to Band-Aid and patch and Band-Aid and patch and talk about the same things over and over and over again. It kills momentum. It kills meetings. It can kill trust.
It
too.
does. And it does. It does.
It's an important thing.
Absolutely. So we're going to hit it hard on this and just like really go down to what you need to do. And Jenni's got a great framework that when you're feeling stuck, we're going to ask you to follow this framework. It works. Now, the hard part is doing anything about it. And I'll say a couple things before we get started. Like, there's no greater fatigue than mental fatigue. Let that sit. There's no greater fatigue. You guys probably listen to this podcast, driving home from your practice going, the dentistry was the easy part. Hard part was like all the other stuff. There's no greater fatigue than the mental fatigue. And if you diagnose the mental fatigue, what you're going to find is we got to get to the real issue. And I'm telling you guys, when you get to the real issue and you can diagnose it, do something about it, your life actually change. It'll change over and over again. Your problems are never your problems. They're usually how you think about your problems or what you do about your problems. And so we're going to give you a framework. And before we do it, let's illustrate the problem that happens in a lot of dental practices. Jenni, people are like, you know, I love this whole idea of changing my hours, but you know what? I got this person that'll never go for it, or my patients are all teachers and they'll never come in the hours. And you know what? I got to serve my community. So you instantly introduce obstacles. Dentists think in terms of exceptions. So as soon as you want to do something with your practice, you're like, oh, I got a reason why it's not going to work. Right, Jenni?
We so often, our minds tend to go to all of the obstacles, to all of the reasons that something won't work. And then we get into this putting out fires mode and dealing with one little thing here and one little thing there and one little thing here. And we just don't look holistically at things. So we can pause, change our thought process and think about, okay, what's really affecting this? What is this really going to affect? How do I need to think about change on a whole? We just don't step back to look at things in a way that can help us really understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And God, it's exhausting.
It's completely exhausting, you know, and there's a lot of cliches. I'm not making fun. Mental health is a very serious issue, but like the definition of insanity, doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result. There's a lot of truth to that. And another thing, I was coached by Nito Cobain for years. And he would say to me, he's like, Kirk, stop complaining. Stop. He goes, to make a mistake is okay, but to repeat it, stupid. So like the important piece is leaning on people. That's why you got to have a great coach, a great person to talk to, because they can call out issues when you don't want to call them out. And then I'll add one last layer to this. I'm a wuss. I've been clinically diagnosed as a wuss. I love people. I don't want them to be upset. So I often used to hate calling out the real issue because I thought I would screw things up. And then I realized I was screwing up more by not telling the truth about the situation, or at least knowing ourselves in this whole thing. So let's start with the framework, Jenni. Like, we get these questions all day long. People say, nothing, it's not going to work, or, this isn't happening. And you have dentist after dentist that we meet early on in the process, and they recycle garbage from team meeting to the next team to the point where you don't even want to do them anymore. You're like, I don't even want to have a team meeting anymore because it's just a waste of time. I got prep a tooth. That's more predictable than meeting with my team. So where do we start with this, Jenni? Take us through the process.
Yeah. So the first thing really is just to pause and like, what is the real issue? Mm-hmm. We talk in circles, or we run about something that we're frustrated with. And sometimes really just asking a team member, pausing during a team meeting and saying, okay, let's just take a second here. In one sentence, can we say, what is the real issue? Let's try to bring it in a little bit and identify what is the issue, not talk about what are all of the effects that I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. What are all the things that are circling around here? Let's bring it in. What's the real issue? Because it's easier to work with one thing versus a million things that are going around.
Yeah, and the real issue, because I love this, I'm going to challenge, because I've been there, you guys, if you're listening. Like, the real issue, sometimes you're talking with a team member, a person that you work with, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to bring this up and they're going to explode. Now, here's a question that'll add to the real issue. Is this person a good core values fit for your practice? And if the answer is no, there's nothing you're going to say. There's no formula. There's no wisdom. There's no motivation that will ultimately fix this. We just don't care about the same things, and eventually it's going to fall apart. So you have to identify the real issue, because people that fit your core values on your team, they'll be willing to listen. They understand, and at least they'll be open to the conversation. That's one piece. Now, let me go to another real issue that isn't always a people issue. This is my favorite because this came up on Friday when I was in New Orleans. I speak all over the world, and I introduce the whole idea of changing the hours in your practice to get more life. I don't care what people make anymore. I care about what their lives look like. And I think time is the new rich. And so in New Orleans on Friday, somebody came up to me like, you don't understand, like, I could never do 7 to 3 because I work evenings and Saturdays because I've got to accommodate all these people in my community, like teachers. And I'm like, oh, I love this one. Now, let me pause. The real issue is not teachers. You think it is. Now, data helps everything. And I told this dentist, I said, I've done this a million times. First of all, let me say this about teachers. I think teachers deserve an award. I think I'm a frequent flyer, customer for a lot of airlines. I get the A line. There should be a line above that line for teachers and military, and they should get on planes. They should eat for free. They get a special place in the world for me. I think they're one of the most underappreciated people that often add the most to the world. And so let me help you with something, doctors. When you're telling yourself that my practice is all teachers, no, pull the data. So I had a dentist pull the data. He's like, yeah, I got too many teachers. 11. He had 11 teachers. 11 teachers. So 11, you have 11. Yeah, I had 11. He was like, no, I think I have more than that. No, you have 11. Okay. There are days in which you work and teachers do not. True? And they all go, yes, it's true. Those are VIP teacher days. I would proactively save, schedule, and honor those days to serve teachers. Bam. Now, every dentist we've ever had change their hours and accommodate that thinking process. You know what they get? They get referrals from who? More teachers.
Yep.
And it's amazing. So, like, sometimes the obstacle is the path. So you got to identify the real issue.
Yeah.
So if
our thinking is so huge here, right? Yeah. It's the way we're thinking about it, the way we're overthinking about it, or the limiting beliefs that we're bringing to it.
Yeah.
really just think like, what's the real issue? How am I thinking about this? Am I all over the place? Like,
Yeah.
identify that.
And I'm getting older now, so my filter is going away completely. And Jenny's like, oh my God, don't tell this story. But I'm going to tell the story from this Monday. So, like, I have a regular case of the Mondays. I love my weekends, and I always come in and I always, perplex myself with the things that aren't ideal yet. It's called living in the gap. You think of like all the things that aren't there yet. You probably went to a course, you saw some beautiful dentistry, you saw somebody else's practice, then you go back to yours and you're like, it's not quite there. And you live in what's called the gap. So I often start the Monday. I'm pretty happy for the most part. I come in on a Monday. Now, my Mondays are set up to follow Jenny's whole protocol here to identify the real issue. I've got my line of therapists ready to go. My first conversation is with Behrendt, and Behrendt like, just bring it. And so I just vomit into his ear about all the things that are in my head. And, it's becoming less and less. And he's like, no, you don't want to think it's not the real. And you know what? He's right. Then my next meeting is with you and the rest of my traction team, which is my leadership team, because we don't always agree, but we always get aligned. And it's awesome. I feel so calm by about 10:30, 10:45, 11 o'clock in the morning. And then the third meeting I have is with my entire awesome team. So by the time the third meeting comes, I've already got rid of the stinking thinking. We've already talked about the real issue. And it's funny, most of the real issues are me. They're not really the real issue. And it's really important. So the clarity is crazy important. So if you don't have a coach, you need a leadership team. You need somebody to talk to that can tell you the truth, bring you some data, and put you in your place so that you don't blow up the rest of the organization. And identifying the real issue is key, because now you can start to go to work on it, right?
Yeah. So, and like, let's stay with that. So you get to the real issue, and then we get to root cause.
Yeah.
Right.
And
so
and root cause now again, we also followed a methodology. If you're a coaching client of ours, you know how this works. We have what's called an issues and an action items list. So real issues, things that are happening, the real problem, we move it to what's called the issues list. We're behind on a number. We move it to the issues list. We're behind on a priority. It gets moved to the issues list. When we first started doing this process, we'd have like 90. Now there's just a handful, and we work through them, therefore not recycling the garbage. And we start to do the IDS process, which Gino Wickman explains in traction, which we'll describe in a second, which is step number 2, the root cause. So Jenny, take me to the root cause after I've identified the real issue.
So real issue and root cause, like, we're just layering on that. We're just building on that. So again, like, the problem is rarely the first thing that is stated. There's always something behind that's causing it, right? Like, we're looking at the symptom. We want to know what's the actual cause.
Right.
A great and very simple example. I was working with the team, and they're like, the data's wrong. The data's wrong. We don't know this. We don't know that. We can't figure it out. The root cause is they had no idea how to actually use the software. So the problem wasn't that the data was incorrect. The problem was that they didn't have the training to understand how to use it. So rather than spending all this time analyzing the data and where it's wrong, it actually was an inability to use a software.
Right.
So a very simple explanation, but so often we don't look past what's happening to say what's causing this.
Right.
What is the root cause? And if we want to actually solve a problem, we need to go to the root cause.
I love this. I'm already thinking of 30 things that happen now, if you're listening, you already know this. Like, there's a lot of things that happen in your practice. Maybe you did a big case today. Somebody didn't pay, and you're mad at Samantha, who works the front, because she didn't collect all the money. Well, what's the root cause? The root cause is we didn't have all this down in writing. You were just people dependent, hoping Samantha, throwing a bomb up there, hoping she'll collect it all. The root cause is this. We got to have it all in writing, and it's got to be explained at the chair, at the consult, so that Samantha just follows the system. And that's an important piece of it. You see in treatment planning too, sometimes people come in and they go, hey, can you just whiten this wiggly tooth right here in the front? And you're like, oh gosh, we can't do that. We got to talk about why the tooth is wiggly, and we got to start with the basics. And when you start to lean into the truth, it fixes problems with people. You feel like you're making progress. The root cause is an awesome place to start with solutions, don't you think?
Oh
There's
yeah.
nothing that saves more time when you start fixing the problem with the root cause.
hmm And another step, another way to look at this is this idea. So like I've looked at root cause, or talking about, is there a problem behind the problem, or what's the problem behind the problem?
Right.
You'll notice a lot of these are linked. They're similar concepts, but different ways to look at things and go through these steps until we can really get down to the nuts and bolts. This one is really particularly helpful when we're talking about E minus R equals C, or this idea of expectations minus reality equals
Right.
conflict. So what's the problem behind the problem? Why do I have the conflict? I want to really go all the way back to the expectations,
Yeah, absolutely.
because usually that's where my actual problem lives, is in the expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. And my mind is, I mean, because this is the area that we live. We're practice coaches, so we deal with problems every single day that dentists bring us. And I meet dentists on the road, and they're like, I go home and I just don't even enjoy dentistry. And so this third step, the problem behind the problem, really requires some depth. It requires some good perspective. And some people are just cooked at the end of the day. And they're like, things aren't good at home, or like, I'm really struggling. Like, the problem behind the problem is I don't care who you are. When you go to work at 7:15, you leave at 6:30, you're not going to be a good spouse when you go home. You're spent, and you're an introvert. So you're spending more than what you're given every day. And now you've got unfair expectations at home that you're just going to be a good person. You sometimes need an area to decompress. And then you recognize other bad habits, like, wow, that first glass of wine tastes really good, type of a thing. And we embrace other unhealthy habits. The important thing is this, is that problems that aren't solved, addressed with the root cause, they create bigger problems. Please write this down. I don't say this often in a podcast, but unresolved conflicts always become a crisis. They always do. I don't care if it's perio. I don't care if it's overwork. I don't care if it's alcoholism. I don't care what it is, but when an unresolved crisis goes on and on and on, it usually gets bigger. The infection grows until the point it becomes a crisis. And now you have to proactively do something. And when you look at the crisis, it could have been reduced or taken care of or countermeasured if we identified it earlier. So I love this. Now, the problem behind the problem, Jenni, like, here's one thing. This is why I talk to Jenni a lot of times when I'm just cooked, because you can't see the problem behind the problem. Sometimes
It's
you're just
hard.
dealing with the problem.
Perspective is, having a coach, having outside perspective, having someone that can ask questions and even just say, what's the problem behind the problem?
Yeah.
Can help you pause and think, can help you get there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, we had a dentist this week, a great client of ours, and there's some transition in his practice. And I said to him, just pause, like, just breathe. You don't have to do anything. Be still in this moment. And I talked to him today. He's like, oh my gosh, it's just so good to be still in the moment sometimes and just not react. And between stimulus and response, that's where the magic of the world lives. And so he's not only talking to me, he's talking to a lot of mentors, a lot of people he trusts. And he's like, man, I just have much better perspective today. Because if I would have said what I really wanted to say yesterday. Now, here's one other thing. And again, I don't care anymore. I often write emails and never send them.
Oh, unsent emails, unsent letters.
Oh my gosh. Right? I think you helped me. I will often type text messages and then delete them. And I'm so glad I do that. Now, I don't always do it, but I'm leaning to do it more than ever. I almost sent one this morning and I was like, just deleted it. I just felt better articulating it. And then I thought about how it was going to be received. And I go, you know what? Now, I'm going to address the real cause, but I'm not going to just do it in an altered state. Is that fair to call it an altered state?
Yeah. Well, and like changing mediums, talking to another person, writing, texting, typing, when we shift to a medium, so sometimes like from writing on a piece of paper to writing on a whiteboard, those little changes can create sort of changes in our mind and how we're looking at something. Or when I have the thought about I'm going through this thought process to deliver it to someone versus to internally process it, it makes us think about things in a different way, even if we don't realize that.
Yeah.
So if I'm thinking about how will I deliver this to someone, my brain is going to think about it in a different way.
Totally. Totally. Now, if you're looking at the methodology, it's brilliant because here it is. We're going to identify the real issue. We're going to move it to the issues list. We're going to identify the root cause. We're going to talk about the problem behind the problem. We're going to peel it a little bit more and just gain some perspective. So let's say, okay, I figured out the real issue. It's this. The second thing is, what's the root cause? It's this. There are still going to be some things that you just have to peel back the onion, because you could still be dealing with someone who fits your core values. And we've got good thinking, but they still are not the person that you can ask them to do this role or to pull this off in some respects. You do need to peel back the onion, just have added perspective. So give me an example, like in any practice that has happened recently, Jenni, peeling back the onion.
Well, peeling the onion gets you a couple of things, right? Like we can look at things in different ways. And I also think about this idea of peeling back the onion is it's like I'm peeling from one side of the onion. So I have an issue with my schedule. So from this side of the onion, I'm peeling like with my personnel. And I'm looking at like, is it on this side with my personnel? On this side, like I may be peeling the onion from another side and looking at my software. Like, oh, okay, is it something with my software? So I'm working sort of holistically, peeling away different parts from different sides, so I can really figure out, are there multiple things that are affecting it? And I get down more and more and more and more. And I might get different action items. Each peel might also give me like, hey, this piece is affecting it a little bit, and this piece is affecting it a little bit. So I don't tunnel vision.
Yeah, I love this. Now, this is kind of cliche, and peel the onion's been used a lot in my career for 25 years of doing this. Now, 4 and 5 go together, but here's the learning that happened for me. I used to try to peel other people's onions. Now, and then I realized, no, they have to peel it. I can't peel it for them. And so I'll tell you what that means for me. If I'm in a challenge, if somebody like Jenni does this, like, okay, what's really going on? I'll go, nothing, I'm good. No. What's really going on? What do you really want to say here? If you put me in a space, not putting baby in a corner. That's not what I'm saying. If you put me in a space, now we use the word trust-based, vulnerability. We use all these words, but the truth of it is those are extremely powerful, but they need space and they need safety. But if you leave me in a space or bring me into a space where, hey, we got a half hour to figure this out. What's really going on? I'm going to start peeling back my onion. I'm going to start telling you some things I probably shouldn't tell you. I'm going to tell you things I probably never told another human being, and we're going to just go there, and I can trust everybody with that information. Or you get into a relationship with your team, you can trust them. And so when you're peeling back the onion, you get that much more clarity around what the real challenge is, and surround yourself. You do need to be able to do this with somebody you trust. And I look at 4 and 5 going together, Jenni, because 5 comes off the heels of peel the onion, which is what else? Now, Behrendt asked me that.
Favorite. I know.
Yeah. Now tell me why. Why is what else one of your favorites?
And what else? If you only got really good at asking one question in every area of your life, I would love it to be, and what else? Because the real answer is rarely the complete and true answer. The real solution is rarely the final and complete solution.
Right.
This is something that people don't often ask, but it makes us pause and think, okay, we got here, and what else? It makes me think a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
It makes me think about the answer that I just gave, and is it correct? Yeah. It makes you think about, okay, was I totally honest, or is there something else? I ask you this all the time.
Yeah, I love it. What else? I totally agree. If you don't master anything, get good at asking that question. Now, another thing, I'm not a brain scientist, but I do know that it changes the way the brain operates. You're going to take all of the energy that's in the back of the brain, which is the emotional area of the brain. It's going to bring it right to the front. I live with 4 women, 3 daughters, and my wife. And questions are crazy important. I also know that they manipulate the heck out of me sometimes when I'm angry, and they'll ask me questions, and I go, I know exactly what you're doing, because I have to calm down and I have to transition everything. And sometimes the questions are extremely thoughtful. Now, I'm not asking you to manipulate him. That's not my point. The point is this, is that questions are calming. They bring extra information, not so much for the listener, but sometimes and most times for the sender. Because Jenni, when you ask me those questions, I'm like, yeah, okay, all right, here, and I'm an external processor. I don't internally process very well. I try, but it's messy. I'm best externally processing. So here's the whole idea of what we're trying to share with you today. You're going to have all these challenges come your way. Your ability to solve issues and create healthier processes in your practice is crucial, and I would say dependent. Your success depends on that. And so you've got to be able to move things to an issues list and follow a framework. So if you can chart out the real issue. And again, what we do here at ACT and what we teach clients to do, that gets moved to the issues list. It doesn't slow down a meeting, because you can start a meeting and then open up a can of issue, and then it stinks up the whole meeting and you never get anywhere. So when the issue comes up, boom, it's kind of like, what's that game, whack-a-mole? Boom, it pops up, we whack it, just put it right over on the issues list, because we're going to get to it, but let's get through the essence of the meeting. Then we're going to talk about the root cause. We do what's called IDS, identify, discuss, and solve, like meeting. Here's another thought process, Jenni. It doesn't take 2 hours to solve an issue. You can sometimes figure it out in a couple minutes, true?
Yes, absolutely. And you should be aware of like, if you're talking about something too long, if you're going on and on and on and on, maybe you're not at the real issue, you're not solving the real issue, or people aren't being open and honest. There could be politicking going on, or there's tangents. So sometimes even saying, hey, we're going to give ourselves 10 minutes to discuss and solve this, right? This is Parkinson's principle in action. We've got 10 minutes. What's the real issue? What's the root cause? And discuss it and try to come to a solution. You'll be surprised what you can get through if you're really intentional like that. And a lot of this root cause, problem behind the problem, peeling the onion, these are the discussing pieces that are so important, that then getting us to solving and being done with something forever.
Yeah. And so hope you guys get this, but this is called the Best Practices Show podcast. We've been doing this a long time. We love dentistry. And if you're listening, I hope every time you show up, we give you a little bit of a framework, something that makes your practice and your life better. And what we're discussing today is this: your ability to solve problems and issues gives life meaning. You say to yourself, I've been here before. I can deal with this. Now, I'll tell you transparently, I've been on both sides of that net. I've been in a situation where I couldn't solve my own problems and I was miserable. And I told myself a really bad story of, maybe it was the whole Jack Nicholson, maybe this is as good as it gets. And then, something happens. You find a new team member, you find a new framework, you get a new coach, and now you're like, wow, I can solve some of these problems. And now you say, no, that's not as good as it gets. It can be better. And you don't solve all of them. Your life's not perfect, but life has more meaning when you're like, I can solve these things or have a framework. So make sure you follow Jenni's framework, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And if you don't recycle garbage and you feel like, hey, listen, and let me give you one more thought. Like, here, we teach this stuff. But I'm not going to tell you, we hammer out 6 issues every single week. There are some team meetings, we only get 1 issue figured out. And
this is maybe a really good, like, final point and tip and actionable item. If you've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 issues, spend 30 seconds, and this should take no more than 30 seconds, saying, right, okay, what's number 1? What's number 2? What's number 3?
Yep.
Start at number 1 and talk about it until it's solved.
Yep.
Right? Get that prioritizing piece is really, really important when you're in this space where you have a lot of issues.
I love it. And I have a lot of issues. I always joke about that, but it's true. But here's what Jenni just said is perfect, because I'll leave you with one last thought before we bring to close. Like, when you can say to yourself, meeting with my team is the most valuable thing I do every week, and you know it, that's when it's starting to happen. You know that you can land the plane, proactively fix these issues. You know they feel better. You know you feel better, and maybe you're just fixing one thing a week. Now everybody is getting on the same page. When you are telling yourself a lie, going, this is the best time, and inside you're dying because you're like, I should just be prepping a tooth. I can't listen to this. Recognize what the real issue is, the root cause, the problem behind the problem, and think to yourself, I got to get a coach, or I have to change the way I experience these team meetings, because when you guys do, I'm telling you, it changes your entire practice. You've created a habit in which you're creating a better practice and a better life. You're going to go home a better spouse, a better significant other, a better human being. You'll be nicer to your dogs. You'll just feel better, and it'll give you a great perspective about this great profession called dentistry. Any last thoughts, Jenni?
No, just get really good at this. Get really good at asking questions and thinking differently, and being committed to thinking a little bit differently. And you will see these issues fly off of the list and never come back.
Absolutely. And when you're completely stuck, you know what helps? Chocolate espresso beans.
Oh, I only have 2 left in mine.
So Jenni and I were just like, all right, chocolate espresso beans. All right, let's cover this. It's all good stuff. So stick around, Jenni, while we say goodbye to everybody else. But thank you guys for listening to the Best Practices Show. Hey, I want to remind you, dentistry is the greatest profession ever. But it's not often the challenges that you have. It's how you think about the challenges. So keep showing up with us at the Best Practices Show podcast. And if you're really stuck, join us at the To the Top Study Club, where we put the best dentists. I'm biased, but I think they're some of the best dentists in all of dentistry, the best thinkers in a room. It'll blow you away. Mm-hmm. You'll come away from these meetings with a changed perspective. It'll change your mind, it'll change your perspective, and ultimately change your life. So come join us, To the Top Study Club. You can find it at our website, actdental.com. But until we see you guys next time, keep listening. The Best Practice Show. You guys enjoy your day.